What's up? It's Talib Kweli. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and you are now rocking with the Queen's Address podcast.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Where are my most beautiful queens in the house? Where are my most beautiful queens in the house?
Hey everybody, it's your girl Jamilah with the Queen's Address podcast. Welcome into the Queendom. Today is a very, very special day. I'm so excited. One of my top 3 in the building, okay? He is an activist, he's an MC, he's an author, and he's an everyday soul brother, an entrepreneur, okay? Talib Kweli, King Peace. How you doing today?
How you doing?
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Telling you a little bit off camera that this is a dream come true for me.
I appreciate that.
You're my top 3 with Black Thought and Nas.
You know what I'm saying? That's good company.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so before we get into the interview, I have to say I'm so excited to have you. I understand how busy you are.
Oh, it's all good.
And I'm so thankful for this interview, but I need to read some of your words from one of my favorite songs. And it goes, "You fruitful, beautiful, smart, lovable, huggable, doable like art, suitable to be part of my life. Copper tone, oh, you copyright infringement. Pay, you been this tan since way back in the day. It's like I'm standing there, you knowing, appreciating God's design, and then you showed up. It's like you read my mind. Damn, she's fine. I think I add the R-E in front of that. Wow. Brown skin lady."
Yeah.
Okay, it's one of my favorite songs.
I appreciate that.
The words, as a Black woman, I'm going to try not to get emotional, but we sometimes don't feel seen and appreciated. Sometimes the allergies kind of, but you and most of Yasin Bey, y'all put this song together, and sometimes I put this song on when I feel down. We get ignored a lot in society, as you already know. And you nailed it with that song.
Thank you.
Shout out to Jay Rawls, who produced the track.
Yes.
And I just want to say thank you for that song.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's very important. That was definitely the intentionality behind writing the song. Jay Rawls was one of the first producers who... Jay Rawls and High Tech were the guys that we flew out to L.A. to work on the Black Star album with us. And that was maybe one of the first beats that Jay Rawls played for us with the Gil Scott-Heron sample. Yasin, I think he already had that hook in his mind. And I think it was very important for us, especially in that era, to represent Black and brown women in the era where the visuals and the videos were becoming so much a part of hip-hop culture.
Absolutely. And it puts us up as desirable and lovable. And I just wanted to ask, before we really get into the interview, what do you love most about Black women?
What I love most about Black women is that even though Black women are amongst the group with the least amount of privilege in the world, and even though Black women are amongst the least privileged people in the world and the most oppressed people in the world, Black women have become a miracle, and in spite of everything that has been against them, they have exceeded and thrived even in situations that were set up for them to fail. And that's not at all a diss to men. I stand with feminist and womanist movements, or whatever you want to call it, because the people who really, really, really fight for equality for all people and equality for all women are people who really, at the end of the day, have men's backs as well. And it's not even like a rewarding situation. Like it's very easy for men to be like, Black men in particular, to be like, well, I have to respect women because I have a daughter, or I have a mother.
Right.
And I get that logic, but you
Right.
have to, I think, go beyond that and understand that you have to be able to respect women whether you have women in proximity to you or not.
Absolutely.
That's got to be a baseline that exists regardless of which women are in your family.
Exactly. Brooklyn. You were raised up in Brooklyn. And so I always imagine, as a hip hop fan, we hear about Brooklyn. Where Brooklyn at? Brooklyn in the house. Brooklyn in the building.
Thank you for picking up that dinosaur. I was looking at it the whole time. In my head, I was like, I can't forget that. So thank you for putting it with the rest of my things. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, we just hip hop fans. We always. I'm from Ohio, born and raised in Ohio, so we always hear where Brooklyn at. We want to be from Flatbush, right? So I always imagine, okay, Talib Kweli, how did you grow up? Were you more like Theo, Huxtable, Lance, or Slide? Because we have the Cosby Show, we have all these iconic things that we kind of look at. We have our songs, we have everything. Who would you be more like growing up when you were growing up in Brooklyn?
Well, I mean, I definitely the Cosby Show was such a cultural phenomenon for us, and my family in New York City really respected the Cosby Show and a doctor and a lawyer. That wasn't necessarily a reality, but it was something to strive for us. And Theo, Malcolm is such a great guy, and he cares so much about hip hop, and he's from the hip hop generation, and he's somebody who represented the hip hop generation on television for his age. I'm the same age as this guy. So I definitely related to him. I had both parents in my household. So I related to that as well. So yeah, I definitely, I looked at Theo Huxtable as someone who could be a brother or a cousin or somebody I knew. Right.
I can't imagine you acting like Cockroach and shaving a head and trying to be in the mannequin video.
Yeah, shout out to Cockroach, to Carl as well.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
So that question came from the proximity.
Yeah.
We were just in Brooklyn not too long ago, up on Lafayette, and you got projects, you got affluence, like crazy
Pratt
affluence,
Institute,
and all of it just kind of together, and then you see the Cosby Show, how all three of these social economic situations come together and can be friends.
Absolutely, and that's what sort of makes New York unique in that way, is that people are more pressed together, and you have different classes of people having to interact with each other.
Absolutely. No, this is cool. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about your feeling toward the moment of clarity in which Jay-Z rapped, "If skills sold, truth be told, I'd probably be lyrically Talib Kweli." What was your reaction when you first heard that line? Because I felt like he was trying to give you some props. And
yeah, I feel like that was absolutely a big up and absolutely a high compliment. I mean, now Jay-Z is an icon in the world, globally. But back then he was an icon in hip hop.
Right.
And he's to this day, that's Hove. He's very important to the culture and to Brooklyn specifically, and to people who take lyrics seriously. Specifically, Jay-Z and Nas and maybe a couple other people are a very rare breed of people who have gotten very rich, but still care a lot about the art.
Right.
It's very hard to do.
Right.
They're actually the exceptions to the rule when it comes to that.
Right.
Normally, if you get that rich, it's because you don't care about the art.
Right.
So we have to hold them in high esteem and high regard. And with somebody like that, who's from my neighborhood, not my neighborhood, but from my borough, gives me such a high praise. And he's not just, what's important about that lyric, he's not just praising me and Common, but what he's also doing is he's self-reflecting and he's criticizing himself in those lyrics. That's the thing that people miss. He's saying, I could actually be better. I could actually be giving you more of myself, more of this message, but the trappings of capitalism and the me trying to be a businessman is actually more important to me at this time in my life. And when you see his trajectory, you see once he established himself as a businessman and the money was no longer an obstacle or no longer something he had to worry about, that's when you start hearing the 444 and the story of OJ, and he starts growing the dreadlocks and he starts looking and acting and moving different, which I think we're seeing like who Jay-Z really is at this point.
Right. I agree with that. And so we're going to switch gears to activist Kweli. Okay. You have a lot of things going on, but I wanted to ask you about that moment. It went viral on CNN and it was between you and Don Lemon, and you were on the scene at the Ferguson protests that were happening over the death of Michael Brown. And it was a very tense time. And as a fan, we, wanted to know exactly what transpired before the interview started, because the whole world saw it and it went viral.
Yeah. So sometimes with that moment in the past, I felt I never felt like I shouldn't have been there, shouldn't have said what I've said, but I felt conflicted about it because it went so viral. It reached an audience that is maybe not sympathetic to that cause,
Right.
an audience that doesn't know who I am, an audience that, is just not privy to, like you said, the context of what goes on before an interview. So they just see, a famous person on TV or someone
Exactly.
and there's a lot of critical response to that, a lot of criticism to that interview, because if you look at it out of context, it's like a rapper during protests having an argument with a journalist about whether or not this journalist knows who I am.
Right.
And so that was a point that I was making, and I think that point, I was trying to create context for people who were watching, but I think that what I've learned since then is that those things were about sound bites.
Okay.
Those things are not set up for actual conversation, actual discussion. Okay. I think that's what was happening. I was trying to have an actual discussion, and Don Lemon, who I respect,
right,
comes from a soundbite culture. And I think Don Lemon has learned a lot since then.
I think so too.
Which
bro.
I have also learned a lot since then.
Yeah.
So I was asked to do the interview with Anderson Cooper. Don Lemon, I have a lot of respect for, especially being a black gay journalist in that space. He was very important and necessary, even though I disagreed with a few things he had said in the past before I met him. I still felt like he was an important person to have.
Right.
And I was asked to do the interview with Anderson Cooper. When I got there, they said Anderson Cooper's not going to be here. Anderson Cooper I had met before, but I was like, he can't make it. But we have Don Lemon.
Okay.
So I said, okay, cool, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfectly acceptable replacement. And then Don Lemon, he came skating down the hill, which I thought was fly actually. Like he's like, he came. But what you saw me responding to was when he came to do the interview with me, he didn't say what's up. He didn't shake my hand. He just went right into work mode. And in retrospect, he probably had a lot going on. He just kind of, where's my marks? Where's my cue? Put on my thing. And he went right into the story. And then he brought me on.
Right.
And me, and maybe this might be an ego thing. I'm someone who, when I do an interview with someone, we shake hands first.
Right. Polite.
Normally.
Very, yeah.
But I'm not going to say that should make or break the interview.
Exactly.
Like, especially in a situation like that. I wouldn't even have brought that up if I didn't feel like he was trying to control the narrative in a certain way.
Got you.
At that time, Don Lemon has since been fired from CNN.
Right.
So I imagine that his position on this is very different. And he's done my podcast since then.
I know.
So we've talked about it, but he was playing the role of company man.
Right.
I came into it, I was on the ground with the people. And the people, I had been there for a week.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people kept complaining about was the footage, not just Fox, but also CNN, and how it was skewed on one side and only telling the police version of the story. So I came in there with agenda. Like, I'm going to tell the people's side of the story.
Right.
And as soon as I started to do that, I was critical of CNN. And I mentioned CNN by network name.
Absolutely.
And at that time in his life, he was gang.
Yeah.
He was like, hold on.
Yeah.
He was proud of the work that him and his colleagues have been doing. So now we have a clash of, I'm trying to represent this group of people on the ground. He's trying to represent what he feels like is the good work of him and his crew. And so he's like, well, hold on. And so that's where we started butting heads. And what got lost in that was Michael Brown. So that's the, if I have any regrets, is that we didn't spend enough time talking about really what the issues are, because we're clashing over this media issue.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you explained that, because the fans, we were like, we love both of y'all.
Yeah.
We were like, oh my gosh, and so we wanted to, know exactly what was going on. And so I'm glad you explained that.
He said at one point, and he didn't quite mean this, but I now in retrospect, I know what he was trying to say. He said, because I was acting like he was talking over me, which he was. And he said, I invited you on the show. And that's when I was like, you didn't invite me.
Oh, wow.
The producer invited me. What I didn't say was I wasn't supposed to be talking to you. I was supposed to be talking to Anderson Cooper. And I didn't say that part. That's the part I said the producer invited me.
That was your feeling about it.
Yeah. You didn't invite me. And in fact, you didn't even speak to me when you showed up. You don't even know who I am. And that's what I was feeling. I was like, you think that I'm just some rapper. And I'm much more than that. But you don't have a relationship with me, so you don't know. And that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
But I think some of it came across like, you don't know my name. You're supposed to know who I am. And that's not what I was trying to say.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you spoke on that. And I wanted to also ask on just some more quality viral stuff, just very quick. Have Have you talked to Kanye at all?
Yeah. Last time I spoke to Kanye, last time I saw Kanye was February, March of this year, and then I spoke to him again in May on text a couple times. I ran into Kanye at a hotel, and I was with Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock, and he was with his wife, and we sat there and we talked for a long time. We talked until wee hours of the morning.
Yeah.
Kanye is someone, his energy was very different in person than it was online, and he's somebody who I think changes his mind every day as he wakes up. And some of the things he says, a lot of things he said recently, not just about me, the things he says about me are very trivial. They're not very important. But the bigger issues, when he's talking about race and politics and history, these things are egregious. These things are beyond the pale. They're beyond just my opinion, man, or free speech. They're beyond just wrong. He says things that are dangerous. And I don't think he knows that. And so I think it's my job of people who have access to him. I don't have complete access to him. I run into him when he decides to be seen. Yeah. But I think people around him have to do a better job, because the people who know better should do better. And I think a lot of what he says, he just doesn't know better, and the people around him have to do a better job of informing him.
Well, I'm glad you guys are on speaking terms.
Yeah,
we're fans, so we always want to see
I never
our
had
favorites.
Beef.
Yeah.
I never had beef with Kanye. I never hated him. I never disliked him.
Yeah, he brought your name up. I want to say the Drink Champs interview.
He did.
And
he was goofy for that, just to borrow a Chicago term, but he was, sometimes people do goofy shit, like I know that a lot of what he's saying he doesn't actually mean in those situations. He was hurt. What came out of us speaking, and the reason why he lashed out, not just at me, but at Big Sean and Common and some other people, he was hurt that when he was dealing with his situation with Kim Kardashian over the children, and he felt like he didn't get to see his kids, and he felt like he was speaking out about how much that hurt him. And I can't take sides in that situation. Right. There's two sides to every story. I don't know Kim's side. Right. I don't know his side. I don't know the kid's side. Right. So I got to take you at your word that something bad is happening. But guess what, bro? We all got baby mama drama. You ain't the only one. You like, did you come to help me when I was arguing with my baby mom? Right. No, you didn't, and nor should you have. Right. That's none of your business. Right. Just like this is none of my business. Right. So I think he was a little. That's what I would say that we spoke about, is that me trying to have grace and empathy for him, because I'm like, okay, I know what that feels like. Right. To feel like you've being separated from your child, and to feel like it's out of your control. Right. But also, I don't know how much that is out of your control. I don't know how much of that is my business. And we all go through that. You're not the only one. Exactly. And sometimes you crash out and don't know you crash out on somebody who's catching energy that's adjacent to something. And we just gonna send love to that brother. We just gonna send love, energy, and I hope that, he heals, Yeah. But we're gonna keep it pushing. Javadi Media. Okay, People's Party Podcast, Native Sons by Talib Kweli and J. Ross, To the Ghetto, and the Confidence of Knowing. Okay, wow. Not to mention the bookstore, the tour. You got it going on right now. Thank you. I think you just got back from Europe. Yeah. And, how do you balance it all? Do you sleep, or do you eat? Do you get a chance to? I take a lot of naps. You do? Well, I'm glad to know that. Yeah. That's the secret. Siesta gang. You got a lot going on. Yeah. Well, this is what I do for a living. This is what I ask for. Is it a struggle just to balance it all out? It's a lot to carry, bro. It is. It's. I don't know if struggle's the right word. Okay. But it's. I have to be intentional about it, and I have to work to make sure that I'm doing the right things to take care of myself and balance it out. Yeah. Yes, sir. And so I got a question. Okay.
So you had the opportunity of gifting your grandmother an audience with Obama. What was that? How did that feel for you? I listened to your book, and you talked about how it felt for everybody else, but you didn't really talk about how you felt about that.
Oh, that's interesting. My grandmother in the Obama era was calling herself the Obama Mama because she really liked the Obamas and she liked the concept of them. And I feel like if you're a black woman born in the South, she was 86 when she passed away. I'm not sure her exact birth year, but she passed away a year, 2017, I suppose. I took her to the White House in 2016. She passed away in 2017. So if you're a black woman who's 86 and you passed away in 2017, that means you were born in an era where you knew people who were slaves.
Right.
You're born in an era where black people and black women in particular did not have the right to vote. You're born in an era you lived through Jim Crow and segregation. You saw what happened with Rosa Parks and MLK and Malcolm X. You saw the successes of the Black Liberation Movement. You saw the failures of it. When you think about our generation, it's like when we were kids, a comedy trope for black comedians was, imagine a black president. And that was every black comedian had a joke about a black president because it was something that was fantastical to us. It was something we could never imagine. Chris Rock has a movie, Head of State, in which he's a black president. The premise of the movie is, imagine a black president. Right. So this was something that we couldn't even imagine. We couldn't even fathom it. It just seemed like an alternate universe. And so for a black woman to have grown to that age and raised a family, and now she's in the twilight of her life, she's seeing the Obamas, not just a black president, but this man, tabling his politics for a second, because I certainly don't agree with all his politics. Right. But tabling his politics for a second, representation is important and it matters. And this man, he's knowing that politics is dirty. This man is an excellent politician, and this man is an excellent community member, excellent member of an upstanding citizen. Even if you don't agree with all his ideas and policies, you can't front on the fact that he's an exemplary citizen. And so, and him and his wife, so together. So it was very important that I met Obama, and I'd had a meeting with him at the White House, and I told him about my grandmother. And I was like, yo, you don't understand. She has Obama dolls and, coloring books all in her house. Oh, gosh. And her house is filled with Obama merch.
Yes, the pictures on the wall.
Yeah, all of that.
My mother.
Yeah, so
I did the same.
So he said, well, I want to meet her one day.
Yeah. And
so then he had a birthday party, and I was invited, and I could bring one guest, so I brought her, and she was in a wheelchair at the time. So I'm wheeling her around, and they said no, you can't bring anything. It was his birthday party, but they said no pictures, so you can't bring your phone, and no presents. Okay. Those are the rules. Okay. And she made a collage from ebony and jet of pictures of the Obamas. Oh, wow. on a piece of cardboard or something, construction paper. Yeah. And she's like, I'm bringing this, and I'm like, you can't. No presents. Wow. You can't bring shit. I'm bringing this. Right. I'm like, you can't. Now we arguing about it. Right. I'm bringing it.
And don't you try and stop me.
Right. And so we get there, and so now what I realize is that if you're wheeling an 86-year-old black woman around the Obama White House, yes, the assumption is that she's some sort of civil rights leader. And so people was coming up to her like, thank you for what you've done for our country, for your service. Wow. And I'm like, yo, she didn't do nothing but opera. That's my plus one. That's my plus one. And she's like, yeah, I'm more famous than you. Hey. And I realized that. I said, if you're an 86-year-old black woman at the White House in the Obama administration, then you are more famous than me.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? No matter what I've done.
Honorable. Oh,
you know? Man. And so Obama, he walks in, and everyone's, he's saying hi to everybody, and I'm talking about these are Paul McCartney's there, and
heavyweights.
Yeah, they're just heads of state, and he goes, is that the Obama mama? And he walks right up to her, and he says, I need a picture with you. And he has his assistant he says, go get my phone. And his assistant or someone goes get his phone, and he took a picture, and then he sent it to me. And so I have that picture in my house framed. It was the only picture that he took that night.
Oh my goodness!
And so that's. Wow, so
that's very special.
Yeah, I felt like my grandmother's more famous than I am. That's what I felt.
Shouts to grandma.
I didn't get a picture that night. She got a picture.
But she got one. Yeah. Oh, that means the world, man. And so we got to talk about this album, The Confidence of Knowing. You and Jay Rawls. Okay, my favorite joint is the Coast Contra joint.
That's a good one.
You know what I'm saying? And so do you have a favorite song off the new album?
I don't. I like all of them, but if I'm pressed, I would probably pick the one with my daughter, Steve Austin,
Yeah.
just because she's on it.
Shouts to her, man. Oh my gosh. And so I really want to ask what's next for Kweli, but you have like so much going on. Do you have anything coming up for the next year?
Yeah,
Or just continuing to
Well, the J. Rawls album just dropped, so we're pushing that. I'm about to be on the road in Europe, and got the Bun B album coming, and the Large Professor album coming, and
shouts to them.
and other things that I've been working on.
Wow, just keeping busy.
Okay, so before we go, ask him.
Okay.
In your book, you talk about the feeling when you first had your children, and how it changed you as a person, as a man. How does it feel now to actually record with them and see them on their own journeys? Both your son and your daughter are stars.
Yeah. It feels full circle, and it feels right, and they arrived at this who they are on their own. I can't say completely on their own, because obviously if you grow up with me, there's going to be some parental influence, but it's not like I was like trying to push them into the music at all. And for a long time, they don't, it's not like they pop up at my shows, or they're asking me for favors. They do the opposite. They do their best to stay out of my way, or to do it on their own. So they had to like come into their own first before we even started doing music together. We do music together not because we're family. We do music together because they're good.
That's the criteria. You gotta be good. And so, Talib Kweli, thank you so much. I understand how busy you are. This means the world to me. I've been trying not to cry the whole time.
No, thank you. I'm glad I was able to do that.
Just thank you for what you do for the culture. You're a very powerful king.
Thank you.
And your words move us so much. You know, those of us who are true hip hop fans and been down since you started, from then to now, and
I appreciate you.
a million years from now. Thank you, King.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Y'all.
Thank you for being here, and thank you.
No, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in to the Queen's Address podcast. I'm your girl Jamilah. Peace, King. Peace, Queen.
Queens